What do you do when you see a dead plant, or at least one that looks like it just lost a fight with reality? Most people take one look at it, sigh dramatically, and throw it straight into the trash. But not us. Not the people who actually appreciate plants. Because here's the thing about plants. They're stubborn little biological machines that refuse to quit. And there's an old saying among growers that goes something like this. If it's still breathing, it can still be saved. And the plant we're looking at today is a perfect example of that. Because on the surface, this orchid is showing some serious warning signs, the kind that make most people slowly back away and reach for the trash can. We're talking advanced dehydration and a very real possibility of rot working its way through the plant. The first thing that jumps out immediately are these leaves right here. Several of them have turned completely brown, thin, and papery, which in plant terms basically means the leaf has clocked out, filed its resignation, and is no longer participating in the living. And the reason this usually happens is pretty simple. Either the plant has been severely dehydrated for a long time, or it's been dealing with a fungal infection that slowly killed the tissue. But it doesn't stop there, because even the leaves that are still green aren't exactly thriving. Instead of looking firm and hydrated, they appear dull, leathery, and wrinkled, which is a massive red flag that the plant's internal water system isn't doing its job. And in orchids, that usually points to one major suspect: root rot. Because when orchids are overwatered or stuck in media that drains poorly, the roots begin to suffocate, rot, and die. And once that happens, the plant loses its ability to move water up into the leaves. So even if you keep watering the plant, the moisture never actually reaches where it needs to go. And the leaves slowly begin to collapse like a building with no plumbing. But there is another possibility too. Sometimes this level of dehydration happens from the opposite problem: extreme neglect, meaning the roots dried out, died off, and the plant simply couldn't absorb water anymore. After all that trimming, cutting, and removing everything that was clearly beyond saving, what we're left with is something very specific: a single orchid crown. And believe it or not, this is actually exactly what we were hoping to see, because the crown is essentially the command center of the entire orchid, the point where the leaves grow, where new tissue forms, and where the plant decides whether it's going to keep living or quietly give up. So as long as this crown is still firm, still intact, and not completely overtaken by rot, the orchid still has a fighting chance. And that's the key idea here, because when you're rescuing a severely damaged orchid, the goal isn't to save every leaf, every root, or every piece of the plant. And before we move any further, there's one more thing you should always do. Give the plant a nice, thorough wash. Not a hurricane blast from the sink, just a gentle spray of water. Enough to rinse everything down without beating the plant into submission. Because after all that trimming, there are always tiny bits of debris still clinging to the crown, old fibers from dead roots, pieces of decayed tissue, maybe even microscopic hitchhikers that decided this orchid looked like a great place to live. And leaving those behind is basically like cleaning a wound, but forgetting the dirt still stuck in it. It's just asking for problems later. So take a moment, gently rinse the entire plant, especially around the crown, where all the important growth happens. To start things off, we're going to use something surprisingly powerful: aloe vera. And yes, this exact plant right here is the reason you'll sometimes see other plants growing ridiculously well around it. Aloe has earned the nickname nature's healer for a reason. Inside those thick, juicy leaves is a gel packed with compounds that help fight bacteria, slow down fungal problems, and even encourage plant tissue to recover after damage. Which is exactly what we want, because right now our orchid has basically been through botanical surgery. So we're going to take a single aloe leaf and simply cut it into a few small pieces. Nothing complicated, nothing fancy, just enough to expose that fresh gel inside. Next, you're going to want to load those aloe pieces into a container. Nothing fancy here, just something big enough to hold everything while we work. Because in a moment, these chunks aren't going to stay chunks for long. They're going to break down and release all that gel, turning into a natural solution we can actually use on the orchid. Think of it like extracting the good stuff, the healing compounds, the moisture, all the things aloe packs inside those thick leaves. Once it sits and starts releasing that gel. Now comes the part where we turn all of this into something actually usable. We're going to blend it, because right now, these aloe pieces are still just chunks of leaf sitting in a container. Useful, yes, but not exactly easy for the plant to absorb. So by blending everything together, we break down the leaf structure, release all that thick inner gel, and turn it into a smooth solution. And that gel is the good stuff. Once everything is blended, there's one more step before we can actually use it. Strain it, because right now the mixture is a bit chaotic. You've got the liquid aloe solution we want, but you've also got leftover fibers, pulp, and random plant bits still floating around in there. And those chunks aren't doing us any favors. If anything, they just sit on the plant, trap moisture, and potentially cause problems later. So what we want is the solution itself. Finally, we finish the solution with one last ingredient. A small touch of honey, not a whole spoonful, not a sugary disaster, just a little bit. Because honey has natural antibacterial properties, which helps create a slightly safer environment for damaged plant tissue. And when you're dealing with an orchid that just went through trimming, cleaning, and basically emergency surgery, every bit of protection helps. So add a small amount into the aloe solution. Give it a quick mix so everything blends together nicely. And that's it. A simple mixture made from aloe and honey. Natural, gentle, and surprisingly effective at helping stressed plants recover. Now this next part is where things get a little risky, because instead of just spraying or dabbing the solution onto the plant, we're going to soak the entire orchid crown in it. Yes, the whole thing. Now before anyone panics, this isn't a long bath. We're only letting it sit in the solution for about 5 to 8 minutes. Just enough time for the aloe mixture to coat the surface and reach the areas that were recently trimmed. After those 5 to 8 minutes are up, you want to take the orchid out immediately. No extra soaking. No, just a little longer experiment. Because at this stage, the goal isn't to keep the plant wet. It's simply to let the solution coat the surface and do its job. So once the time is up, grab a clean tissue, paper towel, or a soft cloth, and start gently wiping the plant down. Not aggressively scrubbing it like you're cleaning a pan. Just lightly removing the excess solution from the crown and leaves. What you want at the end of this step is moist tissue, not a clogged surface. If the solution pools inside the crown or sits thick on the plant, the trapped moisture can quickly turn into rot. So wipe away the excess, leave just a thin layer behind. Moist, clean, and breathable. That way the plant keeps the benefits of the treatment, without creating the exact environment that rot loves to exploit. Now for the environment. Because even the best treatment in the world won't help much if the orchid goes right back into bad conditions. So we're keeping things simple, a standard pot with proper drainage holes, and a handful of pine bark. Nothing fancy, nothing overcomplicated. Because orchids like this aren't meant to sit in dense soil like regular houseplants. In nature, they grow clinging to trees, with their roots exposed to air, rain, and constant drainage. Which means the goal here is to mimic that environment as closely as we can. The drainage holes allow excess water to escape, while the pine bark keeps the roots loose, breathable, and well aerated. Water flows through, Air flows around the roots, and the plant gets the exact balance it needs to recover. Simple setup. But for orchids, simple is often exactly what works best. Now, in case you're still wondering, no, regular dirt will not work here, because orchids are not normal houseplants. They don't grow buried in soil like tomatoes or your backyard grass. In nature, most orchids grow attached to tree bark, hanging onto branches, with their roots completely exposed to air, rain, and humidity. Which means if you stick them into regular potting soil, the roots basically suffocate. The soil holds too much water, airflow disappears, and before long the roots start rotting all over again, which is exactly the problem we just spent this entire video trying to fix. That's why orchids need a special type of growing media. Something chunky, loose, and breathable. Materials like pine bark, coconut husk, charcoal, or other coarse mixes that allow water to drain quickly while still letting air move freely around the roots. Because for orchids, airflow isn't a luxury, it's survival. Give them dense soil, and the plant struggles. Give them a loose, airy mix, and suddenly the roots can breathe, recover, and start rebuilding again. And to finish everything off, we're adding one last layer, a small handful of moss. Now, this isn't here to suffocate the plant or bury the crown. The goal is much simpler than that. Moss works like a natural moisture buffer. It helps hold a bit of humidity around the roots while still allowing the rest of the media to breathe, which is extremely helpful right now. Because this orchid is still recovering, and its root system is basically starting from scratch. But moderation is the key here. Too much moss, and you trap water. Too little, and the plant dries out too quickly. So just a light handful on top, enough to help maintain moisture without turning the pot into a swamp. And with everything in place, there's only one thing left to do. Give the plant a good misting and a light watering with clean water. Nothing extreme here. Just enough moisture to settle the media and give the orchid a proper start in its new setup. Remember, at this stage the plant is still recovering, still rebuilding, and most importantly, still fragile. So the goal isn't to flood it with water. It's simply to maintain a stable, gentle environment where new roots can begin forming. Keep the media slightly moist, make sure the pot drains properly, and let the plant do what orchids have been doing for millions of years. Slowly rebuild itself. After about 4 weeks, you should start noticing the first real signs of life. And the biggest one to look for is the appearance of tiny new roots beginning to form. They usually start small, little green or pale tips pushing out from the base of the crown, slowly exploring the media. And that right there is the moment you know the rescue worked. Because once an orchid starts producing new roots, it means the plant has officially switched from survival mode back into growth mode. Those roots will begin searching for moisture, anchoring the plant into the bark, and slowly rebuilding the entire root system from scratch. After about 4 weeks, you should start noticing the first real signs of life. And the biggest one to look for is the appearance of tiny new roots beginning to form. They usually start small, little green or pale tips pushing out from the base of the crown, slowly exploring the media. And that right there is the moment you know the rescue worked. Because once an orchid starts producing new roots, it means the plant has officially switched from survival mode back into growth mode. Those roots will begin searching for moisture, anchoring the plant into the bark, and slowly rebuilding the entire root system from scratch. And there you have it. What started as a completely hopeless plant, reduced to nothing but a lonely orchid crown, has now turned into a growing, recovering orchid that's well on its way back to full health. New roots forming, structure rebuilding, and with enough patience. This little survivor will eventually reward you with something every orchid grower waits for: blooms. And when that day comes, it's going to be hard to believe that this exact same plant once looked like it was 5 minutes away from retirement. Which just goes to show, with the right care, the right environment, and a little patience, even an orchid that looks completely finished can still make an incredible comeback. And if you enjoyed watching this tiny botanical resurrection, consider giving the video a like. It helps the channel. It helps more people learn how to save their plants. And it tells the algorithm that orchids deserve a little more attention in this chaotic corner of the internet. And if you'd like to see more plant rescues, orchid care, and the occasional experiment that probably shouldn't work, but somehow does, make sure you're subscribed, because there are plenty more plants out there waiting for their comeback story. And that wraps up today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.